All right, good evening. Today I wanted to show you guys a tool that I use for patching. It's called Amazon SSM. I know it's an Amazon tool, but I actually use this tool to patch my on-prem hosts. I have a small lab that I do various things on at home, and so I use this tool from Amazon to patch my on-prem hosts. It's pretty neat. Once you get it all going, mine is fully automated. I don't have to touch it. It just patches whenever it needs to. It runs every day. You don't have to run it that much or that often actually, but mine runs every day. It patches when it finds updates. It reboots when it needs to reboot, and I don't have to patch my servers anymore. This could be of some good use when you're working either in your work environment, your home lab environment, or if you're using it for work. So anyways, I'm not going to talk about the, here's my, let me back up here. Here's my Git page for some of the work I did. I use Vagrant boxes at home. I have some on-prem, but I use a lot of Vagrant boxes to spin up things. They're very easy, very fast to spin up. Anyways, I've included the Vagrant file here for a CentOS, custom CentOS image that I have. It's not going to work for you the way it's set up here, but you can use your own custom box. You can just point it at something else. The most important parts of the Vagrant file are it calls a provision script. And so this provision script here basically does a bunch of stuff. And then here we install this plugin here and allows the Vagrant file to reboot the server. And after the server comes up, we run another script here called post. And this post script basically is what connects your Vagrant box to what's called a hybrid activation within SSM. So you guys can check this code out here and play around with it. It's basically the Vagrant file. This initial install SSM agent, you'll see that it's already included in the provision script. And it's basically like the first thing it does here is it downloads it. There's no versions on it. The version is in the RPM, but typically this is the latest version of the Amazon SSM agent. And then once you get that installed, that post script that I showed earlier will take care of initializing and connecting to SSM. And I'll run through that also. So like I said, before you want to patch your on-prem hosts, you have like 30, 33, 34 hosts, you'll need to set up what's called a hybrid activation. And I'll show you that. It's right here. Sorry, let me back out. So if you're searching for the tool itself, you actually can search for SSM or Systems Manager. And here it is. And you have various tools here. The ones I want to talk about today is this hybrid activation. Your servers will show up here in your inventory and your compliance and your fleet manager. But this hybrid activation is what links your on-prem to SSM. Your patch manager, I want to talk about that because that's where you establish your baseline. And then your maintenance window is what kind of sets this whole thing in motion automatically. So let's start with this hybrid activation here. And it looks like I already have one here, but it expired yesterday. So you'll see here the role. You'll have to create a role, an IAM role, for this to work. And essentially what I do here is I created this this role here, AWS service role for Amazon SSM. And then I have one policy, the Amazon SSM service role policy attached to it. And here you'll see the allowed actions. But I've been using this. I haven't had any issues with any kind of access to any of the machines that I have running. So in your hybrid activation, I'll just go ahead and delete this one because it's obviously expired. So the thing you want to know about hybrid activations is once you create the activation here, you can call it whatever you want. And then you'll want to put more than one instance because once you use one, it's gonna say, hey, there's no more left. I always just put 100. You can put 1,000 if you want. I don't have 100 machines to do this for. And then here's where you select. Actually, I just leave the default one. And then here you can set an expiration date. I usually set it for, it says no more than 30 days. I usually do like 10, 15 days, something like that. You don't have to specify a default instance. And here, when you create, if you don't specify an activation expiry date, it expires it for you like after 30 days. I've noticed that. So just be aware of that. Once you create the activation, here's the most important part, is this activation code and activation ID. These won't work, by the way, so I'm going to delete them as soon as we're done here. These will only be shown to you once. It's like your secret tokens when you create your user logins and all that within IAM for users. So here it is. All you need is these two lines right here. And you'll notice that within my post, they're right here. So I just put those values in here. You specify your default region, and then down here it activates it. And then just be aware that that does expire automatically. I don't know if maybe they'll change that later. But here, once your machines start populating, you'll see all these machines here. And this is your inventory. So the initial place where you can go and check out here's your agent version. These are all private IPs, and then there's a whole bunch of servers. Anyways, that's not too interesting here. You'll see this Linux Mint here. That's a machine that I use, but you can install it because it's a Debian package, but it won't. SSM won't pick it up. It doesn't want to talk to it. It just shows here. I'll show you in compliance. It'll show you a failure, and these are all your patched instances. So all my machines are patched except one. And here it is here, and you have to go look at it. And when you do so, you'll see the tags. It's that UB14 is that Linux Mint system. So that's your compliance tab. It just shows you, your items that are patched. I'm sure you can do more interesting things here. I just don't. In the Fleet Manager, I find this useful, like if I have to tag a bunch of things. So if I have 100, 200, I've run into this, a couple hundred hosts, and say I want to pick all the Elasticsearch nodes and go through here and select them. And then just under Instance Actions, where is it? Add tags. And that quickly allows you to add, you can add, one tag, 100 tags. So that's very important, actually. So you'll notice that all of these machines, if I click on one of them here, there's a host name, just for identification purposes. But this is the most important thing right here is this prod patch group. So this RH81 I know is a physical host. And so I label it as prod. Everything else in my fleet is labeled as patch group, either prod or patch group anytime. So I'll pick another one that's not. One thing I don't like about that, oh, here's another physical machine. One thing I don't like about the Fleet Manager is it doesn't give you the host name, and so it makes it hard. So here's a little microservice server that I was playing around with, and the patch group is anytime. And where that comes in handy, that patch group, is if we move up here to our maintenance window. You'll see I have two maintenance windows, the daily prod update and the nightly update. The nightly update just captures those anytime hosts. And the way it does this is kind of weird. You create the maintenance window, but then you have to define your tasks and your targets on those targets. So if you look at this target, just call it patching target. You can put description, whatever you want. But here, right here, specify instance tags. You can choose it manually, but I just find it easier to tag things. That way, if I create and add a new host anytime, and I tag it with this patch group anytime, this maintenance window takes care of it for me. It'll patch it automatically. I don't have to muck around with, selecting individual servers. So you have to, once you create your maintenance window, the most important part here is you basically create your window, your time window. 4 hours, cut off 1 hour before the 4 hour ends. Mine doesn't take that long. Time zone, and then when you want to do it. So it patches every night. Here it says next execution time November 2, which is today at this UTC time, which is -6. So I forget what it is, 11 o'clock or something like that. And then your tasks are what it's going to run. So here we tell it run the default AWS run patch baseline. And that's just listed here. You can search for it exactly with this name. And what that does, here you select your target, that patching target. So you define your targets first, and then you define your task. And then here you can say, select that patching target. And then here you can do some kind of rate control if you need it. If you have hosts that depend on, that can have to be rolled out one at a time, you can say one target or percentage, and then stop if there's any errors. Obviously, I don't. I just, reboot the farm. It doesn't matter for me. I don't really have any snowflakes. I can reboot at any time. So here it picks the role when you first create this. It picks the role for you, and it's whatever role you. Here it is again, AWS service role for Amazon SSM. You can do all this other stuff, right to an S3 bucket. I don't recommend it. It's quite loquacious. It dumps out just tons and tons of output, and it's not very easy to sift through, and it's not. I didn't find it very useful. If you have an error, I suppose you can look at that. But if you have an error and it shows a failure, it will typically, you can drill down into the failure and go to the output, and it'll hopefully have something. And if it doesn't, what this tool is essentially doing is it's running yum update on your CentOS instances. And so if it fails for whatever reason on the host and you can't figure it out, go to the host and then just run a yum update yourself and see if there's any output, and then try to run the update manually and see if that gives you. I found I found a lot of errors that way, and I was able to fix like some dependency hell that happened on some hosts, and then cleaned up the yum update command. Once that was clean, I came back here and I was able to patch through SSM. Here's, if you don't want to install anything, you can just scan it and then later run like a report against it. So if you're really worried about your instances rebooting or you don't know what's going to happen, just scan it and then you can run a report against it. I have a Python script here that I've included in the Git repo, this one here. And basically I just pass it a region and an account that's valid in that region, and it'll go through and dump those hosts for me. I could probably run that later just to show you what the output looks like. But yeah, if you don't want to, if you just want to scan it, you can scan it. If you want to install, you can install. Reboot option, I reboot all my stuff, like I said. Cancel that. So that's essentially your maintenance window. Remember, you got your targets and the task that is applied to those targets, and then here's your time. That's essentially it. Once you kick this thing off, I mean, it runs, you know, it runs at the specified time. And the last thing I need to show you guys, or I want to talk about, is the patch. Under Patch Manager, there's what's called the patch baseline. And here it is right here. So Amazon provides a default patch baseline for all these the different systems that they support. There's very few. I know there's like tons of varieties of Linux. And like I said, I have a Linux Mint that I try to get to work on here, but it didn't work. SSM doesn't want to, it won't talk to it. And I didn't want to dive down into the code and see, you know, just for one server. It's like, I'll patch it manually or find some other way. Anyways, here's that CentOS default. So when you create your SSM, when you define it, it's going to probably assign this as your default for CentOS. So I went ahead and created my own, and it's right here. And basically, I created my own because the default Amazon one applies critical and security updates only. And I wanted to apply all updates. And so you basically have to go and define that. And it's fairly easy. You can go through. So if we go through and create another baseline, and create patch baseline, you'll see here's your name. You can call it something creative. Here's where you select. These are the supported OSs. So I use CentOS for all my stuff, most of my stuff on-prem. You can set it at the baseline, the default baseline. You're gonna get this, you know, this little warning. It says, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Yeah, I do. And so here's where you approve. Here's where you select all the products. So all the products means all versions of CentOS. There they are, all the way from 6, which I don't think is supported anymore. Classification, you can. I just, you know, you can classify it as all. I have mine selected as all on my baseline, and then here's where you select your severity, your patches by severity. So they have critical and security. I select all. And then here it allows you to, if it finds something that needs updating, it allows you to wait a certain number of days, so you don't accidentally blow up your system with, I guess, a bad update. So you can do that here. I don't wait. And then you can include non-security updates, which I do in mine. I check this little box here. Compliance reporting, I don't really use this feature. I just select high. You can add rules here. You know, you can add more. You can add security, critical, important, moderate, all these things. You can select different versions. I just, like I said, I patch the farm. I say, give me all updates. Don't wait any days. Include everything that's non-security. And this is something you might want to use. So if you have you have something that's running Java and you don't want to update Java, you don't want to deal with any headaches that might happen there, or any other sources, you can actually exclude things here. So I believe that's how you just have to list the package here. And if you allow as dependency, if something else depends on this, it's going to install it. So you can just block it. I don't use this feature on my on-prem. I just, like I said, I patch everything, but I have had the need for this with a few custom packages that are pushed out different ways. Patch sources are, you can add another source if you don't want to use your sources. What I mean by that is the patch baseline, when it runs the yum update, it's going to run the yum update on your system. It's going to use whatever in your repos. So it's going to look at your repos, and you can, with that button, you can just basically override that. So that's pretty much it. If you had a need to patch a specific host, you can just go to patch manager and then just patch now. And you can say scan and install, or just scan. You can patch all the instances. And here's where you would just specify a tag. So if you wanted to do like specific hosts, like host name, this is one we saw earlier, you just add it and it's going to go only to that host. Or you can specify a patch group anytime and it'll go and patch everything in that patch group, in that tag. This is another interesting thing. I'm not going to talk about it here because you can get quite advanced with these documents. What they mean by documents are pre, during, and post scripts that you can run. So I have a couple of them. Since I run Vagrant boxes, if I reboot one of my physical boxes, I tell it I say, if you're gonna go to this host and reboot, go into all the Vagrant boxes that are running on this host and halt them, so you don't trash anything there. Do your thing, and then after you reboot, make sure that you go into each one of those Vagrant boxes and you up them again so they're up and running. And that's not terribly hard to do, but you do have to specify here with these lifecycle hooks, and then you do have to define your patches, your scripts in these documents. So owned by me, you'll see right here, halt Vagrant boxes, restart Vagrant boxes, and these I didn't, you'll see the content here. I just took whatever was here by default and I added, a description, default name here. And this is essentially what it does, is it just goes into my box. My Vagrant boxes are running under my user. I probably should have taken that out. And it just runs this script that's on the host itself. And that's it. And that script, all it does is loop through. It goes and lists all of the directories, because each Vagrant box is its own directory. It goes in there, lists it, and then it says, hey, give me your status. Are you running? Are you powered off? If you're halted, then do an up to restart it. And that's pretty much it. So it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat tool. The other thing about SSM is all this work that it's doing on my on-prem host. I don't get charged anything for this. There's no charge for using SSM, either within your own EC2 instances or your on-prem instances. Now, where you will run into charges is when you start doing, different, different parameters, configs, application managers. Well, maybe not application managers, but when you start running, when you start dumping your output to those S3 buckets, you're gonna get charged for that. So that's another reason why I don't do that. But anyways, all this stuff that it's doing is all free. Another thing I forgot to mention here is this state manager. It's kind of like a scripting. Well, for instance, here, this update SSM agent, I created this, and it's failed on one. It's that mint box, and then some of these went away. So when it runs again, it'll update this number. But essentially, what this does is it's going to go to everything, all targets, and it's going to run. Where is it? I don't know that I can find it, but essentially is it's going to run this association, and what it does is here's the rate. So every 14 days, it's going to go out and check that SSM agent for you and see if there's a newer one, it's going to apply it. And this has been pretty much working flawlessly here. You see all the agents are updated. Obviously, this one failed, but I did this one manually. But here you see they're all the same version of the SSM agent, and that's that state manager association that is running here every 14 days. And like I said, every time it finds something, it's a new agent is going to update it. Amazon doesn't put versions on their agents for some reason. But if you look at the provision script or the post, not the post, the provision script or this install, essentially, if you do this, it's going to grab the latest one. Like I said, there's a lot more that you can do with this. Here's the Git repo. You can check it out. And within here, there's a lot more you can do. But like I said, these with just defining a baseline in the patch manager, your hybrid activation or your other activation, if you use EC2 instances, you start creating your inventory, and then you create your maintenance window to apply whatever patches you need to that inventory. It's been working great for me for my on-prem. Not that it matters, it's just a lab, but I don't have to patch anything anymore manually. It's all done automatically every single night. So anyways, that's pretty much it. There's a lot more to talk about with these documents. You can go into really detail with those commands. And that's how you run your pre, during, and post scripts that you may need to do to like halt something, stop something. If you've got a cluster, you may want to take one node out of the cluster, patch it, bring it back up, put it back in the cluster. You have to do all that with documents. So I'm not going to go into that. That's too much for this short this short video. But yeah, have fun with that. And then, like I said, it works both on-prem, on your on-prem hosts, and it works with EC2 instances. EC2 instances, you still have to install the agent, but you set up a role. You assign that role to your EC2, and you're up and running. Anyways, that's it. You can check out the Git code and have fun. Thanks.